9/11 here in our country.
No. Hang on a second. If Netanyahu and if the Israeli government had dealt straight with us, you wouldn't have had this problem. They're liars. They've been stone cold liars. They gave bad information. So I'm not going to let that go unchallenged. That's just bullshit.
Had the hostages out. We could have had the hostages out 2 years ago, but it was the Qataris that were providing safe haven to the leaders of Hamas so that they weren't killed by the IDF. Are those our allies? Where are the dead bodies of the American hostages that we were told that were going to be turned over weeks ago when this peace deal was finalized?
It was at this point where Steve Bannon started to calculate, how am I about to rip this girl? Like, am I just going to try to rip the argument, the point? Where is this going to go? You're lying, Laura Loomer. You're lying if you think that we're going to believe that this was all on Qatar, that Bibi Netanyahu that it was only about the hostages. Come on now. Multiple reports have come out that, Hamas there was going to be able to be a hostage exchange well before this, but Bibi Netanyahu wanted to get more of his get back and perhaps carry out with this clean break memo, this plan written, over 20 years ago to extend and to grow the Greater Israel Project. Like, you're not fooling us. Like, it's a bit disingenuous to be nice when you're trying to present the argument this way. Let me go back a couple seconds, then y'all look at Steve Bannon. Look at Steve Bannon.
Are those our allies? Where are the dead bodies of the American hostages that we were told that were going to be turned over weeks ago when this peace deal was finalized? Where are the bodies? We don't have the bodies yet. Qatar controls Hamas at the end of the day. They do. So I think that we need to have a real conversation, Steve, in the GOP, and hopefully, amid all this Israel derangement syndrome that we're seeing from many people on the right, you don't see these people ever talk about Islam. You don't ever see these people talk about the threat of Islam, Steve. And they got to stop being so obsessed with Israel and so obsessed with the Jews. It's not the Israelis that are going to have another 9/11 here in our country.
No.
Yeah, we're not doing that. Obsessed with Israel? What are you talking about? So Americans saying, hey, we don't like the influence that Israel has on our government, on our officials, that they don't have to register as a foreign lobbying agent. That's us being obsessed with Israel? Or is that us pointing out, hey, there's something different about this Israeli influence compared to a lot of the other influence with their lobbying groups? Everything is different, even the way that we give aid to them. We give aid to Israel at one time, and they get to do whatever they want. They get to put it's in our banks, right? When we give aid to other countries for defense, let's say we give it to them as needed. With Israel, no, they get to keep it in the American banks, and it accumulates interest, which they can do whatever it is that they want with it. And even a portion of the money that we give them to their defense support, they can actually spend a portion of it, small portion, but a portion of it on buying their own guns. So we're giving you money to buy weapons from your own manufacturers. Like, oh, y'all are this is the privileged kid in the room acting as if they don't know, just like everybody else in the room knows, that you get preferential treatment. Like, stopping it. Steve Bannon, he was trying to let it go, and you could tell he's just ready to rip her entire argument, because it's like, hold up, you're not going to have me look on this podcast right next to you saying all this wild stuff and me not address it, because then I'm complicit in it. Let's keep going.
Many people on the right, you don't see these people ever talk about Islam. You don't ever see these people talk about the threat of Islam, Steve. And they got to stop being so obsessed with Israel and so obsessed with the Jews. It's not
what threat of Islam? Which one in particular? I'm seriously asking. If you tell me which one you're referring to, then we'll know. Don't you realize that the only reason why all this threat of Islam from these Arab countries, the only reason why Israel is capable of surviving and thriving the way that they do is because of America, because America is the big bully that a lot of these other Arab countries, they know who has the muscle. They know who has the muscle. So when you say, and you're trying to get us riled up about, what about the Islam? What about the Muslims? What about the Islam? What about it? What about it? And to be totally honest, a lot of the reasons why we have ill relationships with a lot of those Arab countries is because of how we allow and support Israel to do any and everything they want in that region.
Israelis that are going to have another 9/11 here in our country.
No. Hang on a second. If Netanyahu and if the Israeli government had dealt straight with us, you wouldn't have had this problem. They're liars. They've been stone cold liars. They gave bad information. So I'm not going to let that go unchallenged. That's just bullshit. Okay.
Well, people
anyway,
need
Laura,
to just start talking about the
totally,
Islamification more. They need to talk about Islam more.
By the way, I've been the tip of the spear on the Muslim Brotherhood forever, and you're seeing a huge pushback on this. We can do it if we unite. We definitely should have the Muslim Brotherhood designated a terrorist organization, and that will change everything. But don't sit there all innocent about what Netanyahu's government has been atrocious, and we should have regime change in Jerusalem, and we should have it immediately.
Yo, she thought she had a friend. She thought she had somebody that was going to be able to support the things that she wants to support, feed into the victimhood of, these oh my God, us, the little old Israel. Like, no, there's criticism to go towards Israel. And the fact that Laura Loomer and a lot of these pro-Israel Zionists think that they can just walk in and take over the MAGA movement, even though from the looks of it, and we've talked about this a lot, it seems as if Trump is getting influenced, to say the least. I would say bullied by Israel, Netanyahu, and whoever Netanyahu works for, right? Everybody works for somebody, right? So whoever's funding, whoever's the people that we don't know, right? The people that are actually pulling the puppet strings, because Trump clearly is exhibiting that, perhaps more than other presidents, because of how we looked at Trump and we saw Trump as somebody that's not going to be controlled by anybody. Somebody's pulling Trump's puppet strings as well. So I'm glad that Steve Bannon did this. I believe that this was a live show. I'm glad that he did it live. He called her out like, nah, that's BS. If y'all would have dealt with us straight from the beginning, that's calling the Israeli government deceitful and liars, right? He's calling them out. So she's trying to portray this one storyline. He's calling BS on it. He's calling for regime change in Israel. Is Laura Loomer supporting that? Does she have a defense against it? I don't know. But I think the video is about to wrap up. So let's look.
They've lied to the American government. They've lied to the American people consistently. You should have it immediately. They've lied to the American government. They've lied to the American people consistently.
Forget all that unity. What don't people realize? The American people, you can have your opinion on Israel all you want, and it can be accepted, cool, that's your opinion. But the American people are shifting their stance. We're shifting our stance. And you can call us whatever names you want to call just because we have a different opinion on the situation. And largely the reason why we have a different opinion on the situation is because you try to jam it down our throat after October 7th that we have to support any and everything, that we have to sit back and not only just allow a genocide to happen, but allow our tax dollars to go towards it, allow our country to support it. And then we're thinking back 9/11, when Bin Laden wrote that letter, and he said one of the reasons why he wrote a letter, one of the reasons why they flew the planes into the Twin Towers was because of our support for Israel in that region and all the things that they're doing in that region. So Americans are well aware that, okay, we saw how they played the propaganda there. We saw how that led to us getting involved in a war in Iraq. We saw how 500,000 children were killed there. We saw how not one Israeli soldier was sent to fight in that war. We saw how a whole bunch of Americans died in that war. We saw how we left out of that area, leaving all of those guns, weapons, whatever else there. We saw how we left a whole bunch of Americans still there as we pulled out, in danger. Americans are not going for this anymore. We're shifting our stance. We're shifting how we see this. Honestly, if we probably wouldn't even have looked into it. I didn't look into it as much until October 7th happened, and until I'm seeing like, whoa, this is getting out of hand. This is beyond retaliation for October 7th. This is part of a bigger plan. And then once you start doing your due diligence, we start hearing from certain people that y'all are trying to cancel all the time. We start hearing their perspectives. We start listening to them. We start hearing from y'all tell us, don't listen to this person. Don't listen to that person. And we're like, no, we can listen to that person and process the information just as you listen to that purpose and you process it and figure that that's something that you do not like. So just because you don't like it, just because it doesn't benefit your agenda, does not mean that we have to go along with the very same thing. No, we're not anti-Semitic because we don't see it the same way that you see it. Perhaps we're just America first, or just from a moral standpoint, like, I don't agree with what y'all are doing over there. And then you got at this Republican Jewish coalition, you got people celebrating murders, Lindsey Graham. You got Officer Tatum bragging and getting cheers about turning Palestine into a parking lot. You got all this, like, knock it off. Knock it off. You're not living in this privileged space that America has allowed you to live in, and that America, and the reason why I say America has allowed, because America's to blame too, because y'all grew us up, you brought us up with all this propaganda that we can only see the world one way. To be totally honest, the majority of Americans, we just naturally grow up. Well, not naturally, but we're taught, we're nurtured to grow up in a way where we see Israel in a very favorable way. As the victims, oh, look at the poor Israelis. Like, they're just trying to live. They're not trying. And then you start to do a little bit more due diligence. You start to realize, like, okay, how was this created? Okay, well, what did the people do that were living there? All these things. You start to connect certain dots, and you start to realize, like, this is a bit different than it was expressed to me when I was in school, or it was expressed to me in other areas of my life. I think we can wrap it up there. I'll see you on the next video.